ad hoc committee, the purpose of which is for the surplus city property at 6 Mountain Street and 116 and 120 Main Street, being held here in the caucus room at 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday evening, July 21st. Members present are myself, Councilman Jack Knapp. I'm the chair of this committee. We also have on this committee Councilman Phil Curran, and for the first time on committee, Councilman Peter Nero. We also have with us this evening ex officio members Don Taylor, Councilman Don Taylor, and Councilman Fred Visconti. I don't see anybody else. And rolling in the door, Councilman Paul Rotella.
Looking for a chair?
Okay, from the mayor's office we have the mayor, and we also have Wayne Shepard. It's here. We have Corporation Counsel Les Pinter, Director of Finance David St. Hilaire, Director of Public Works Antonio Idarola, Director of Planning Dennis Elpern, our purchasing agent Chick Volpe, and I believe that's it as far as the required guests that are here. And I'll introduce the rest of you when we get to your portion of the program. Okay, what I'd like to do first is to just read into record the letter that was sent that called this meeting to order. And it's from to the honorable members of the City Council dated June 2nd, 155 Deerfield Avenue, Danbury. Reference the surplus city property 6 Mountain Street, 116 Main Street, and 120 Main Street. Dear Council members, as I had mentioned during the recent budget process, we need to move forward on the sale of the city property comprising of the former police station at 120 Main Street and 2 adjacent properties on Boughton Street and on the corner of Boughton and Main. 6 Boughton Street is the old firehouse building on Boughton Street. 116 Main Street is a former dwelling, more recently utilized as a police facility for forensic and office purposes. And 120 Main Street is the actual site of the just vacated police station together with the parking area. Pursuant to Code Section 2-133, you must act to declare these parcels surplus and direct the disposition by sale on the market or otherwise by the purchasing agent through notice and publications and other means so as to provide the opportunity for a fair and open offering, followed by approval of sale by the Board of Awards after examination of all offers received. Alternatively, you may authorize a direct sale or other disposition in the event you feel that this is in the best interest of the city. Keep in mind that prior to any sale or disposition, we will need to have a public hearing as well as a posting of the properties such that the public is apprised of the pending action. Please consider referral of this matter to planning, purchasing, and or public works as well to the committee if that is your desire. Do not hesitate to contact my office if you have any questions. It was from Mayor Bowden. So now that we know why we are here, I'd like to roll it over to the mayor to talk a little bit about
the wife takes priority.
A little bit about his request, as well as what he foresees coming out of it. So.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. Just want to take a step back and give you sort of some background of why so many people are here today and what I'm recommending. Obviously, people are aware that there's really 3 parcels when we refer to the old PD site. So for sake of clarity and discussion, when we say the old PD site, we're referring to all 3 parcels at once. Okay, that would be the police station, where physically, the old police station where it lies, and the parking that's adjacent to it. And across the street from Boughton Street, there are 2 parcels. One had the old community service building on there, as well as a storage facility, which was the old firehouse years ago. That's right. In the process of discussing about what do we want to put there once the new police station was open, the city had a couple of thoughts in mind. One of them was that we obviously would want to meet the need for senior housing, that there was been a lot of advocates throughout the last several years that have been asking that there be more senior housing available and more types of senior housing available, and not necessarily low-income senior housing, but maybe some kind of housing that would fit more of a moderate income level. So there was a need and demand for that. There's a need and demand to take a piece of property that was serving the public for the public good to keep that mission of serving the public good. There's a need and demand also to put this property back on the tax rolls so that we can collect and generate tax revenues from the use of the property. There is a need and demand, and we've had extensive discussions with Union Savings Bank, and they're represented here today, and certainly they'll be able to address some of the other ideas and thoughts that they had, to be able to take the Union Savings Bank site that's currently at the library and relocate them, because the library's master plan has for an expansion into that room as a community services room. And since we only have, the only tenant is the Union Savings Bank, it would only make sense that we would approach them and discuss the possibility of acquiring the site. And through a series of discussions and a lot of back and forth, we were able to pretty much meet all the needs that I've mentioned already. We have a proposal here tonight that'll put the property back on the tax rolls. That's a good thing. We get to collect tax revenue. Secondly, we have a proposal here tonight that will serve the public good. There's a health care component, a clinic component here. We have a piece of property that will serve the senior housing requirements that we've asked for that'll be here. And finally, we have a proposal that'll generate jobs and generate positive commercial development on the southern end of Main Street with a strong community partner, which is Union Savings Bank. So with that in mind, Union Savings Bank has submitted to us a, basically it's a sort of a tentative agreement, or a very tentative, not even offer to purchase at this point. It's just sort of saying, hey, we're interested, and here's what we think it's worth. And that price that's an offer is for $2.3 million. Now, before we talk about the specific proposal, just a couple of disclaimers from me. One, I'm going to have to leave around 7 o'clock because I have another commitment, so you guys can back this around after I leave. Two, here's what I'm recommending in terms of process. I'm recommending a hybrid approach. One is that I would like to proceed with a direct sale, assuming that Union Savings Bank can meet all of its commitments and contingencies, and the city can do that. We can work out all the details. With the understanding that should this deal fall apart, should it not be able to happen for a variety of reasons, we would then proceed with a direct auction bid procedure that would be managed and run through our purchasing department. And the reason I say that is this: there's really only one sole source that can buy this property complete, all 3 parcels at once, but also can move the Union Savings Bank that's currently in the library over to this site, and that's Union Savings Bank. So much like when we do a sole source of contracting, because there's somebody with a specialty, I think you have to look at it in this manner. Remember, we're killing really 2 birds with 1 stone. We're creating square footage in the old site and now creating a brand new taxable building farther down on Main Street. So that's really where we have. Now we have representatives, Mayor Erquist is here, Jay Lang is here, Congressman Maloney's here, Mr. Rizzo's here. Each of them are representing various constituencies in this particular project, and I don't want to sort of speak for what they plan on doing, but I kind of give you the overview. Our vision is to have 1 buyer, not 3 buyers. So we would basically transfer the property to Union Savings Bank with the various contingencies that we've described, senior housing, healthcare, all those other things that are in there. They would then work out the financing with Mr. Maloney for his piece, the parish, if they're interested in their piece, with Mr. Rizzo, and move forward. That way we can move forward in an expeditious manner. It's clean for us. We're not dealing with a bunch of buyers in here with all kinds of contingencies, and we can then be able to nudge the project along. I want to mention a little bit about the offer and the amount, how it was arrived at. There are 2 appraisals that are floating out there. One was originally, I asked for an appraisal by our service. They came back, again, with the old police station, which is all 3 parcels, an appraisal of approximately $4.2, $4.1 million, somewhere in that range. The other appraisal we have was commissioned by Union Savings Bank, because I asked them. I said, typically what happens is, when we do a sale of a property, the city gets an appraisal, they do one, and then you sit down and negotiate. And I'm ballparking the numbers, they're not exact, but basically the Union Savings Bank appraisal came in at about 1.7. So you can see that we have a pretty wide delta there. So we went back to our appraisal service and said, well, how do you come up with the 4.1, 4.2 million? And I'm not sure if it's listed in the actual appraisal itself, but I did speak to the Cul-de-sac Commission at Nochi and Associates. They told me they gave value to the police building. They said, we think the police building itself is worth $1.5 million, $2 million bucks. Which they didn't walk inside of it, they just walked by it and looked at it. I think all of us know that there's no value to the old police station building. That's why we moved out of the old police station building, because it's sick and frankly you can't repair it. And if you were going to buy it as a commercial product or project, what would you use it for? You got 6 holding cells, and you've got a very poorly built building. You can't build up because you can't sustain any second floor over the years. Many administrations have looked at that. It leaks. It's got a heating and cooling system that's a complete disaster. There's asbestos in there. There's lead paint removal. You have to knock it down and start from scratch. So there's really no value to the building, and that's how we ended up at the agreed-upon price of $2.3 million. So with that in mind, we have a nice packet put together by the bank. Tonight, we would like to move forward in a couple of different ways with the permission of the ad hoc. That would be to proceed to a public hearing at some point, and also to ratify our hybrid approach, which would be either it's this deal or we go out to bid. Because of all the needs that I've articulated in there. So at this point, I'm going to throw it over really to the bank for just a few thoughts. Mr. Maloney's here to represent Connecticut Institute for Communities, and he's going to talk a little about the services that they'll be performing, because I think the public and the folks here will be very interested. So,
if I could...
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Sure. If I could just throw this back at Les for just one piece of clarification. This hybrid approach, we're all on board with it. We understand exactly what it is. Just wanted to make sure that as this ad hoc committee, we know the charge of this ad hoc committee, we are open for the review of these properties as is within the ordinance, as it's declared within the ordinance. So,
Mr. Chairman, you're according to the submittal letter that you read at the beginning, the mayor had penned to the council. The charge of the committee is opened up to consideration of the overall disposition of the property, which would include a surplus, a discussion of its surplus value or surplus disposition or designation, as well as any other disposition issues of the property, which could include sole buyer, discussion of the buyer, a buyer, no buyer, or a solicitation to the public at large. All those issues are on the table, given the request that was made to the council.
Great. Thank you. With that being said, who's our spokesman?
I'm Jay Lent from Union Savings Bank. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the bank, and I told John Klein that I would come here tonight representing him as best as I could, and I have to say that he is chairman of the Downtown Renaissance Task Force, and I told him that we were going to come here and do this only to make him look good. This is a nice big urban renewal project. So anyway, we appreciate being here very much, and Gene and I sort of have a tag team presentation for you tonight. I'm going to kick it off with some initial thoughts, and that is that I marvel at how we've come to this state, because I think I sent a very innocent letter to the mayor a year or two ago saying, gee, our space in the library building is really hurting, and I'd love to renovate it. But before I do that, I'd love to get an extension of the lease. Well, that caused Mr. Knoll and others to say, oh, no, don't do that. We want that space back. And Gene, who was, I think, helping St. Peter's and working with some people at the time, it caused a whole series of events to occur, not the least of which was, okay, all right, we've got the police station moving, we've got opportunities for urban development, we've got the library that wants their space back, and so, as Gene and I have talked about many times, this is a win-win-win for everybody. The library gets their space back. We get a new building a few blocks from our main office. The city gets 3 parcels back on the tax rolls. I mean, we can't think of a better confluence of events than we're proposing tonight. So we have composed a letter to the mayor, which we have provided to you, which you can read at your. We're proposing to purchase all 3 parcels for $2.3 million. But I do have to say, and this has to be on the record, that we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here in the sense that we have not contacted the banking commissioner about our ability to purchase non-banking properties. The way the banking statute reads is, I'm allowed to do it if it's adjoining, but not necessarily adjacent. And there's a distinction there that I'm not a lawyer, so maybe Les can help me out here. But I think that what we're doing here is we're providing this to this committee to kick the ball down the road. We'll work with the banking commissioner on our end to make sure that we can indeed purchase the police station property. We're not the least bit concerned about buying the 2 parcels on the south side of Bowden Street. We are, though, saying to this committee that we don't know yet whether the police station, and we're trying to get the mayor's request approved here, that he wants to make this clean, just sell the whole thing to Union Savings, and then at some point then we would turn it over to Jim when he's ready. So we're proposing to purchase all 3 parcels. We can't promise you the banking commissioner will go along with that. But we're going to pursue it down that road because we do have a very good relationship with the banking department. And we think if we present the proposal in the right way and in the right light with a time frame, a reasonable time frame. I'll give you a perfect example. We have a new branch we just built in South Newtown. And we have time frames, as Gene now knows intimately, that you can only, okay, we're going to give you 18 minutes to build this branch, and that's it. That's a hard date. Well, we wrote back to the commissioner 3 times extending that date because of circumstances that we could articulate. And so he even if we say we can't turn it over to Jim because of X, Y, and Z, as long as those reasons are articulated, I don't think there's going to be a problem extending the time. Let's say we set 12 months as the time frame to flip it over to him because he's got to get funding in place. So we're proposing this, but we don't know yet whether the police station, because it's across the street, and we're banking, we're very highly regulated. We can't go out and just sort of like wantonly buy properties. But I think if we articulate a strategy, I think that the commissioner, in conjunction with, obviously, the governor, would look at this as a tremendous urban renewal opportunity. So I just want to make sure that this ad hoc committee is clear on that fact, that we're proposing to buy all 3. I know we can buy the 2 where we're going to build the branch. That's not going to be an issue, but we're trying to help out the mayor and Jim here by picking up the police station to give him more time to put his strategy together. So I just want that to be very, very clear to everybody here. So what I'd like to do now, if it's okay with the committee, is let Gene go through. I know you're all flipping through the PowerPoint. That's why we shouldn't pass it out before we talk. But anyway, does everybody who needs a copy have one to walk through with Gene to give you an idea of the scope of the project? Because this is a very, very...
That's okay. I got Freddie. I can look over.
This is here. You can have mine. I sort of know what it says. But I'd like to have everybody take a look at this and have Gene walk through it page by page. Because
Tony will take mine if you like.
Tony, you get it, right?
You sure, Jimmy?
Sure.
Okay, is everybody ready? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Gene now. Are there any questions on any of my statements?
Please.
Just make sure I understand it. You can build the bank on the property that you purchased, but you can't jump across the street.
Well, what the commissioner will be concerned about is what happens if Maloney doesn't perform, and you're stuck with a piece of land in downtown Danbury that you're not going to put a banking operation on. What are you going to do with it? And does that become, it would be the equivalent of a foreclosed property that was sitting on our books. Now, every quarter when we filed our call report, which I'm sure you've heard of banking call report, I have to revalue that parcel because now I've got to report everything at net realizable value because everything's marked to market in financial services now. So this would create some very interesting issues for us. I'm not concerned about taking on that risk. I'm willing to do it. It's just that would the commissioner allow me to do it is the issue.
And from a timing perspective, we should have an understanding from the commissioner prior to the time the council would need to, or be in a position to act with finality.
If everybody's happy with the way it goes, we're going to fire a letter off to him explaining all of this so that we have the letter already prepared. We're just...
Any questions, Phil? No, we don't. Okay. Tom?
Just ex officio member, non-member of the ad hoc, I don't think we could find better partners to partner with for people who've done things for our community than Union Savings Bank, Tony Rizzo, and Mr. Maloney's organization. It's 100% behind it. I think it's a win. It's a win-win for everybody. Win-win for the city. We fulfill senior housing. We fulfill health care. We fulfill Union Savings Bank's vision that has been phenomenal in Danbury, and all all the surrounding commodities, as far as I'm concerned.
And I want to tell you,
Don't forget the library now.
right.
Library job.
Well, in the library, that's why I started with win-win-win.
Right.
There's no losers
And we
here.
need that space.
Right.
There's no way we can lose on that proposal.
And we're very excited about
And
it.
we're dealing with great people. That's
Yeah.
just the only comment I have. I'm fully in support of it.
I know. But I also want to say that our Board of Trustees is 100% behind this project. They're crossing their fingers the Commissioner will go along with the Banking Commissioner. And as one of our members of our Board of Trustees is John Murphy, who just ascended to the CEO of Danbury Hospital. And he couldn't stop talking about what Jim's trying to do and how the hospital needs this. They need the facility. They need what the services that they're providing to deflect these ER patients over. And so he couldn't stop talking about it. And you know what? We hadn't even talked about it before the board meeting. And I had the best advocate I could find at my board meeting in John Murray.
Councilman Rotella.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If the commissioner does not give you satisfaction, is Congressman Maloney prepared to proceed on his own, or will this kill the project? In other words, would the bank be, if I may, would the bank be interested in purchasing its parcel separately?
Yes.
Okay,
We were
and
going
then-
forward with our branch.
Okay.
We were trying to defer to the mayor's
Sure.
desire to have one buyer, make it simple, get it done.
Okay.
So we're pursuing
And
it.
Mr. Chairman, just to make sure we're clear about my position, and to answer Mr. Rotella's question, if the commissioner says, no, you can't do it, the default position, we would go out to bid. That doesn't mean you still couldn't have a Union Savings Bank.
And that the congressman could still proceed for phase
Well, we really want to sell this as one parcel. I don't want to get into a situation where we're breaking up the parcels. It's 3 closings you got to do, it's 3 title searches, it's redundant. I would look to get one single developer for the entire site, and we would have to do that through Chick's department and doing a closed request for proposals.
Well, we'll buy 2 of 3, so it's...
Well, it doesn't mean you can't go back and work something out with whoever the individual was that won the bid. I mean, you can put people together.
Right, that's true.
So you, just to be clear, you would not be looking to, was phase 1 on this, is that your project?
Yeah, I'll explain that.
Let's like,
Right, no, but I just want to get this clear, because the elephant in the room here is the banking commissioner. If the banking commissioner says, if you'll allow me, if the banking commissioner says no, you're still confident you can proceed with phase 1, but you're not sure you would want to break it up.
I prefer not.
Right, okay.
I think from a
We would hope you would break it up, but...
Gotcha, okay, all right. We'll worry about that later, okay, thanks.
Okay. If I could call upon former Mayor Eric Liz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mr. Mayor, thank you for being here this evening as well in support of this project. This has been developed as the letter from John Klein, our President and CEO, to the Mayor indicates, in a community-based collaborative effort with the participation and the cooperation of St. Peter Parish, the Rizzo Companies, the Connecticut Institute for Communities, and certainly Union Savings Bank. We, Union Savings Bank, have engaged the architectural firm of Perkins & Will and the landscape architectural firm of Dodona Associates, who worked obviously with the city and continues to work with the city perhaps, and certainly designed and helped develop Elmwood Park, which is adjacent to this site. And we want, from a landscaping perspective, to be able to link and continue that particular look through the development of these parcels. If you were to turn to the first page, obviously this is just to give you an indication, aerial view of the existing site. Phase 1 is the 2 parcels being the former Mullins House or Community Service Division of the Danbury Police Department, as well as the former Boughton Street Firehouse, which was used primarily for storage, as the mayor indicated, as well as for some evidence activities of the police department. Those 2 separate parcels, known as 116 Main Street and 6 Boughton Street, would be combined as one for the purposes of the development of Phase 1, which would be for the new South Main Bank branch, to be situated on those 2 parcels tied and made as one. Phase 2 is actually, Phase 2 and 3 is all one continuous parcel of land, but we have broken it out to describe that Phase 2 would be the building that you'll see will be developed first for the Connecticut Institute for Communities Incorporated, which would house their federally qualified health center, as well as their administrative offices, and Jim Maloney can expound upon that in a few moments. Phase 3, that area of land that we've identified, would be for the development of the senior housing, at a minimum of 21 units of senior housing to be developed on that site. The next page is just a context page leading you to the following page, which depicts some of the neighboring or adjacent properties and their condition. Certainly St. Peter Rectory, a beautiful building, the St. Peter properties and the interests of St. Peter's. As you know, years ago, the parish worked with the diocese and with the city. We were able to convert the former St. Peter convent to Bishop Curtis Homes. The school exists next to Bishop Curtis Homes, and then next to the school is the St. Peter Rectory, which is depicted here. Of course, across from all those three buildings, as well as the proposed bank building, is Elmwood Park, and across the street from the police headquarters and these three parcels is St. Peter's Church. Okay. The next page again for context and some additional identification of adjacent sites, which include Palace View Senior Housing, done again collaboratively through federal, state, as well as city cooperation, Nolan Enterprises and the Nonprofit Development Housing Corporation, and the medical offices that front Main Street in front of that building, which had been the site of the blighted former Henry Dick furniture properties that some of you find. It was Joel Feinstein who owned it, but it was Henry Dick. And then the next page again, leaving the context, and adjacent Mercantile, the Palace Theater, obviously up the street. What we propose here is obviously to take these three parcels with what have been used as the former police complex and raise these buildings and build new. And if you were to envision this side of Main Street, literally from West Street and the Library Plaza, heading south all the way to Rogers Park, you would find that once these properties were appropriately redeveloped through private reinvestment, that this side of Main Street would be in very, very fine stead and ready for the streetscape element when you're able to get some money to do that, hopefully stimulus money to do it. Again, a context page, and then of course the existing conditions are the now vacated and boarded former police headquarters building, the community service building, and the former firehouse. The next page is a summary of our estimates with the assistance of estimators, with the Rizzo companies, working with the architects to be able to identify what the values are here, in essence, associated with the total private investment on these parcels. Let me just make clear that with this project, there is no request for any city assistance, no deferrals of assessment, and this is a totally private reinvestment into these three parcels, and you can see that the total project costs are in excess of $16 million of private investment through new development, not including obviously the taxes, which we will get to on the next page, as well as the fees associated with construction, the jobs, the local jobs that would be generated through the phases of the construction of this project, and the economic derivative that will provide as well. The next page estimates annual tax revenue to the city. We recognize that 25 plus or minus mill rate might be a little high for today, and so obviously we could adjust downward. And so, but I guess we're around it.
Yeah, we're not going with that one. We're not going to drive me through that one.
We're not that far.
It's what's the plan. We're in good shape, though, is the bottom line. It is going to generate annual tax revenue to the city of Danbury for the bank's property, as well as for the housing component of this project and the land. The next page refers to the concept study. This is approximately a 50, this would be the, and let me go with the former police headquarters property first, if I could, at 120 Main Street. Closer, as urban design should, move the building more toward Main Street than where the current police headquarters is located, or the former police headquarters is located. 52,000, approximately 52,000 square foot building, estimated at 4 stories at this juncture, which would accommodate the federally qualified health center operated by the Connecticut Institute for Communities, as well as their administrative offices. The health center currently operates at 57 North Street, and this would move to an owned facility, and Jim would be able to move his administrative offices, which are in rented space elsewhere in Danbury, to an owned facility situated within this particular building as well. On the south side of Boughton Street, on Main Street on the south side of Boughton, you would see that the 2 properties adjoined, where we would situate an approximate 2,500 square foot signature bank branch building. We'd have a new signature branch design for any new construction, all of which you will see in the renderings that follow. Not only keep but lift the character and the integrity of this particular area of Main Street and this neighborhood. All of the parking of which is contained on this site, likewise for the police headquarters site. And we have worked with St. Peter Parish collaboratively, recognizing that there is the 500-foot rule within the central business district for parking requirements. The parking lot on Center Street adjacent to St. Peter Church. The next page just basically identifies the massing study, if you will. It depicts from a computer perspective what buildings how they would be situated within this particular area. In keeping, of course, with the size and scope, even on a smaller scale, of the Palace View senior housing, certainly in keeping with the height and the dimensions of Bishop Curtis Homes and the former St. Peter Convent, St. Peter School, and the like, and buildings, of course, across the street. The next speaks briefly to the available and proposed parking. There are approximately 150 spaces within a 500-foot radius. That includes 8 handicapped spaces. That may expand to be greater as a result of the collaborative efforts that we will engage with St. Peter Parish in improving that parking area along Center Street, both from a landscape and security lighting perspective, and in terms of increasing the number of parking spaces that exist within that particular owned block. The next page depicts the rendering. This is the site rendering of the buildings as we tell you. This is what the bank building will look like, and I can assure you that the architectural elements that have been captured here, such as what you can see as the turret effect, if you will, on the corner of Main and Boughton for the Connecticut Institute, the communities building,
housing behind
is taking elements of St. Peter Rectory and other buildings in the area. These are all proposed as brick buildings. This again is reflective of our new signature branch design.
We basically tried to incorporate elements of our new North Street branch.
which is beautiful.
Thank you. So we're trying to create sort of traditional with the chimneys and strength. We tried to at least incorporate some elements from the North Street branch into some of the new branches we're creating. That's what you're seeing there.
The next site rendering is more of a head-on for the Connecticut Institute for Communities building, which would occupy the medical offices as well as the administrative offices of the Institute. And the third rendering will show you the element from the south side corner, if you will, of Boughton Street, like if you were standing in Elmwood Park, looking at the bank building, the Institute's medical and administrative offices building, and then the senior housing that would run along Boughton Street, and likely with an arched, connected entryway into the parking area that would serve both facilities.
Don't forget the clock, everybody knows the clock.
And I don't know why our architect chose to put a car
Right where the parking
in Dalton Street so that we couldn't show the archway. That made no sense to me. But there is a beautiful archway depicted in there.
Got to see that a little bit.
Yeah.
That's a good Jeep dealer.
You know, and just in summary, before I ask Jim to comment, the history of this is as long as Jade has indicated. Union Savings Bank had acquired, the building at 158 Main Street, subsequent to Danbury Savings and Loan, and then Eagle Federal Eagle Federal Bank. And when the library burned, we made a request to acquire that building so that we could connect the two buildings and the library and 158 Main and create the technology center on the second floor. But the caveat was that Union Savings Bank wanted to remain in the lower level to operate a branch at that location. And so, in fact, we engaged in that lease arrangement, which will be coming due in a few short years. So our intent would be to turn that over so that the win for the city, in essence, becomes 24/7 municipal parking, dedicated parking for every hour of the library operations, and taking that first floor space within 158 Main Street and making it available to city library purposes, community room, as the mayor had indicated. In addition, the city will generate tax revenue on properties that for over a century, when you consider that the former police headquarters building was the former Main Street School, before the Pardue brothers got at it. And
You were around then, Chief?
yeah, and certainly the courthouse, which is approximately 100 years old as well. Those properties have not been tax-generating properties for the city for many years, and since in the 90s when we acquired the former Dr. Mullins' house and made that the community service division of the Denver Police Department, that too has not been any revenue-producing property. So there are tax revenues that the city will benefit from as a result of this transaction as proposed as well. In addition, there's a significant employment factor that we are bringing into the downtown. And Jim can speak to that when he presents his piece of this. Significant number of employees with significant buying power, an opportunity for people to live, meeting a need for additional senior housing, and certainly providing greater access and traffic flow for people who access our South Main branch with Union Savings. That's our proposal, and the offer of $2.3 million, of course, recognizes that we would be responsible to incur the costs associated with the demolition of the buildings and the cleaning of the site to facilitate any new development.
Thank you. Questions for Mr.
Gene, the apartments, are they going to be rental units or are they going to be condos?
Our intent right now is rental. It could be a mix of condominiums or rental, and we would be glad to work with the mayor and his vision, and certainly with the Connecticut Institute to be able to make that determination going forward. So, right now it's proposed as...
Would you be the landlords?
No.
Was there a possibility of being landlords?
No. We are... What's likely to happen, Phil, is, again, as Jay had indicated, if the banking commissioner saw fit to give us approval for the time frame to acquire the former headquarters property, we know we're okay with the other two properties. The former headquarters property, we would do that to satisfy the mayor's desire to sell it as one project. And we developed this proposal so that it was a cohesive, coordinated proposal that met the different elements and certainly initiatives of the Downtown Renaissance Task Force and that vision and plan.
So if they're rentals, then who is the taxable person?
Yeah, Go ahead, Jim, you want to... Yeah, why don't you do your thing? Yeah, that's going to be better. Explain.
If I could just back up, is it all right, sir, if I back up just a minute? Let me first make sure everyone understands what the Connecticut Institute for Communities is, and then understand what the Federally Qualified Health Center is. Connecticut Institute for Community is a nonprofit community development corporation. The usual abbreviation is CDC. It's a CDC. Which sponsors a number of social service and physical development programs and projects. So, for example, we currently sponsor in the city of Danbury the Head Start program and the new Early Head Start program. And we worked with a local medical practice to propose the inauguration of a community health center. There was, Gene brought this, there was a recent article in the Danbury News-Times about the public opening. It's actually been functioning since January, but this was the public opening because we did some internal renovation and hired some additional staff. A community health center is, the clearest way to think about it is it's a doctor's office. And that's all it is. It's a doctor's office. It's a doctor's office for all ages. So there's pediatrics, adolescent medicine, adult medicine, geriatrics. Okay. In fact, the current complexion of the practice at the moment is very heavily geriatric. That's because of the nature of the physicians, Doctors Kupke, Mox, and Mox, who were the moving physicians to make it possible. It's very heavily geriatrics in service. It also, through referral, provides dental assistance, behavioral health assistance, and other specialty assistance. And that's one of the things that Dr. Murphy was alluding to, which is we already have a relationship with the hospital where we're trying to accommodate people who are showing up at the emergency room that don't really have emergencies. They really need health care, but they haven't previously had someplace to go to a doctor's office for health care that they can afford. We have that relationship already in place with Danbury Hospital. The reason that it's affordable is that the fees are on a sliding scale down to zero. So someone who has very little or no income actually pays nothing. And the federal government provides us a grant to pay for that sliding scale discount. Okay? But that's all it is, a doctor's office. It is not a clinic. People sometimes use the names or the words interchangeably, but it is not. It's a health center. So, for example, it's not a drop-in thing or anything like that. You make an appointment, you call, you make an appointment. Like a doctor's office, if you have an urgent, you come down with a bad cold, you need to see the doctor, well, you're going to get priority in terms of when you get your appointment. But it's not a walk-in kind of situation. It is a doctor's office. And as I said, at the moment, heavily geriatric in its organization. For the committee, just for your record, I did bring a pamphlet which describes, God bless you, we can see you at 12 o'clock.
I'll be there.
Which describes the center as well as a little description about Connecticut Institute. And I have 3 for the committee members, and I have 1 other, so I don't know who should get that, but okay. The pros speak up.
Yes, yes.
Okay, now, if I could ask you to go back into the presentation and go to the building program, that's going to help me explain our part of this situation, and that councilman is going to allow me to answer your bottom line question. The proposal is that once Union Savings Bank acquires the site, they are going to, in effect, phase it, and they are going to keep phase 1 for their use as their new, we could call it signature branch in downtown. It'll be your flagship branch in downtown Danbury. They will then convey out phases 2 and 3 to the Connecticut Institute. The Connecticut Institute will then develop the health center building, which is the 52,000 plus minus square foot building. And you can see what the uses are. First floor, the intention is adult internal medicine that includes geriatrics and pharmacy. Second floor, pediatrics, dental, behavioral health. Third floor, the administrative office for the health center. Office functions, classroom, training room for staff. Like any health facility, again, Danbury Hospital is a good analogy. Training has to be in the DNA. You have to be doing training all the time. You want to keep people current with medicine, current with good practices. So all of that would occur. And then the fourth floor would be the Connecticut Institute's actual CDC, our offices, which, as Gene indicated, we currently have about 5,000 square feet, which is over on Old Sherman Turnpike across from Groliers, is our current location. The health center is, as Jane also already indicated, currently located at 57 North Street, but growing very rapidly, and we're literally already talking to people about renting additional space. So that would be retained by the Connecticut Institute. The third phase would be developed with a housing developer. We don't know who that is yet to be determined. There may very well be a bid process. There probably will be federal financing for that, either state or federal. And we have had some informal discussions with local people in the housing field and the housing business about whether they'd be interested in serving as the developer of that site. In terms of who would own it, the way housing is usually done now is that building would be owned by the LLC that is in effect the developer of the building. Okay, so when everything is said and done, there'd be three different ownerships in three different phases. The bank would own the branch, Connecticut Institute would own the medical center building, and the housing developer, whoever that turned out to be, would own through an LLC probably the actual housing. They then would be the landlords, or if it was partially a condominium or whatever, they would administer that building. Okay, that'd be the housing building. I want to mention that the health stuff has been very heavily coordinated with the City of Danbury's health department, as well as with the hospital, and Dr. Draper, who's the medical advisor to the health department, is here in that capacity as well. The final piece of the puzzle, which has been alluded to but hasn't been quite specified, is the parish. The parish, it's our mutual intent, all of our intent, that the parish ends up with a couple of things that are important to it. One is that the parish would ultimately have the right to acquire the bank property, down-term, long-term, but ultimately would have the right to acquire that property. The reason for that is because the church owns 3/4 of that block already and wants to assure that corner piece never gets into any inappropriate use. You wouldn't want to be running a honky-tonk, on that corner, down the street from the church, across from the church building, down the street from the rectory or the senior housing.
We can quote you on that.
Paul, your eyes are getting big down there.
Well, of course, I don't want to rule anything out.
So the other church relationship is that the church owns the parking lot along Center Street, which is shown on the little site plan. We would look through the Connecticut Institute to rent that from the church for use during non-church activities. Okay, so weekdays, that sort of thing. That provides a benefit to the church, but obviously it provides a benefit to the Connecticut Institute because it qualifies us for some parking so that we're able to build a building. Okay? Then the last thing I just want to mention is two aspects of money. One is, it goes to the question that the bank was discussing about our participation. The first part of our participation is we would acquire from the bank the land for phases 2 and 3. We would do that by the usual method. We pay money, and we have to negotiate, and we haven't quite gotten to that point yet, but we have to negotiate of that $2.3 million that the bank is paying to the city. We would pay some portion of that to the bank, which they might finance back some piece of that as well. And we would put, obviously, a down payment down, okay? We have available, and I put that a little bit in quotes, $600,000 towards that down payment. And I say it in quotes because it's been approved by the General Assembly for the purpose of the Connecticut Institute for Communities headquarters function. It has to get released by the Bond Commission, other things, but we're well along. It's not like it's an idea. It's actually been approved by the legislature. So we're, just as the bank is well along in their thinking, we're well along in our thinking, and we think all of these pieces come together. The final thing I'd mention, and again, Gene alluded to it, but I wanted to put some specifics on it. When full, the health center would probably employ about 75 people. Of that 75, approximately a third would be providers, meaning physicians and mid-level people. The average salary for physicians and mid-level providers is in excess of 6 figures. That's probably no surprise to anybody. Okay? So what we're talking about is we're not only talking about adding real estate property values to downtown, not only talking about adding a badly needed health center to the mix and the system of healthcare in Danbury. We're not only talking about adding senior housing. We're not only talking about taking a semi-derelict lot and turning it into a signature branch bank. We're talking about bringing 25 people who are making $100,000 plus a year to downtown, plus another 50 people who aren't poorly paid either. So you end up with a tremendous infusion of people who have spending power in the downtown, which is a tremendous economic benefit to the downtown as well.
Congressman?
Yes, sir.
But
Is
your building taxable?
No, it's not. No. The health center is the one building that's not taxable, but it is the building that has all the taxable employees, the people who spend all the money.
The housing in the bank building,
If I may. I got a question. Let me just have Paul ask this question. Thank you.
First of all, the Congressman, the rendering of your building is gorgeous. I mean, that really is beautiful. If you can incorporate that tower and everything else, it'd be fantastic. But I noticed, I don't know if this is artistic fancy or not, but you've got some umbrellas, tables. It looks like you have a little cafe on the sidewalk. I'm thinking I go down there, maybe get a cappuccino, have a glass of wine. I'm assuming we're not going down that road, correct?
No, I think that's, you're right. I think that's the artist who did the rendering added a few artistic, just like he added the car in front of the archway, he added the umbrellas in front of the building. Right?
Well, if you want to keep the umbrellas, that's okay with me. Now, we just cleared that tax up thanks to Councilman Kern. He said that he asked you if you're taxable. You are not, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. 50,000 square feet seems like a lot. Your office space is proposed to be at least twice the size of what you're operating in now. Have you done any studies out forward? Is this a building that you can occupy for years down the road, or do you find yourself expanding and perhaps moving out in 10 or 15 or 20 years and repurposing the building?
I think the answer to your question is twofold. I don't ever expect the building would be repurposed. I think it would be the health center indefinitely. Would it be full immediately? Probably not. Although it depends on how long it's going to take us to get it built. We're doubling in size every 12 months right now. Right now, we're doubling in size. So we're now at 5,000. We were at 2,500 a year ago. We're at 5,000 now. Next year we'll be at 10. The following year we'd be at 20, and we still haven't moved into the building yet.
So what do you do?
We're renting additional space. We're negotiating with people right now to rent additional space. So, but it's going to be a piece here, a piece there, that type of thing.
But you perceive this to be and remain the central nucleus of your operation for years to come?
Oh, for perhaps generations.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess through you to Mr. Land. Obviously, this is your number one plan, and it's beautiful, as Councilman Rotella mentioned. I think it's just a super classy job, and I'm tremendously impressed with it. But what I'm hearing is the bank is the driver here. And in the event that Phase 1 Okay, let me go back this way. In the event the commissioner decides that this isn't going to fly, or it can't fly, is there some other rendition where the bank would be interested in going with phase 2 and 3 and making that the jumping point, so starting there? Because what I'm saying is I'd hate to see this get lost. I don't want it to go away, because I'm just sold on this.
Well, it's funny you say that, because we actually paid for Perkins and Will, our architects, to do the entire project, even though we're only going to occupy a piece of it.
Right.
Because we feel like this is such an important part of the downtown and what it can mean to downtown in terms of what I call momentum.
Yeah.
That we're going to proceed with our piece. You know, we defer. What we're trying to do is make the mayor wish come true. Just sell it once and be done with it, and let the bank worry about working with the Honorable Mr. Maloney over here. So if that, let's say that the banking commissioner says, you know what, I'm just a little too jiggy about, you know, what if you wind up holding that land for 5 years because the funding doesn't come through? I'm going to have to defer to the mayor, because I would still go to him and say, I want to buy those 2 pieces on the south side of Boughton and build my branch.
Right.
Please sell them to me now.
Right.
So that part is in the can as far as I'm concerned. It's going to be up to the mayor whether he says, you know what, it's all 3 to you or all 3 to bid. Right. In which case we would participate in the bid process and try to nail down those 2 pieces on the other side of the police station. So that's why I was very clear at the beginning. I'm at the commissioner's mercy. We have a great relationship with the banking commissioner. Pretty sure he's going to say yes, but I just in this environment, I just don't know.
It's good that you said you are at his mercy, because when he watches this, that's probably going to bode well for the rest of it.
You're going to ship this to him?
You'll see it today.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Taylor.
To the chairman, to whoever, as a ex-Marine who served the military bases around the world, every time I drive by that police station, I wish the Pardee brothers would come back. I don't know who designed that building and who constructed it, but it is the worst piece of architecture that we have in the city of Danbury. I don't know if Gene's involved in that or not, so I don't want to. I think it's before his time.
My uncle.
But, yeah, they're all related. But I would love to see that building gone. That is, as far as I'm concerned, that's a blight on the city of Danbury. The proposal's great. Do we have any idea on, it's the first question my constituents are going to ask me. We're looking at 21 units of senior housing, if I remember. And we said it would be moderate, not affordable. Do we have any idea of what rentals or ownership would be on that? Because that's the first question my constituents are going to ask, is what is the price of those units?
It's intended to be affordable.
Affordable.
That's all we can say.
So that goes within the state definition
Right.
of affordable.
I would say so, yes. I know that state definition, yes.
Yes.
I would say that's correct.
Okay.
It's intended to be affordable. It's not intended to be deluxe apartments. On the other hand, it's not intended to be low income. It's intended to be affordable senior housing, which is what I understand through the mayor has been the call from the community to see that it's developed. Okay. While I have the floor, also, I think Mr. Rizzo indicated he wanted to add a comment too, so if I could turn over to Tony about...
Mr. Rizzo, if you would.
Thank you. I am a member of St. Peter Church, and I see Freddie is a member, and of course Mayor Gene is a member, and a few others that I see. I am a trustee of the parish as well, and I am here without asking permission from the bishop. I am here on my own, and I believe I'm in interest of the parish, in interest of our community as well. I have been working on a vision here for many years. I mean, when the police department first started to come into the conversations, my wheels started to turn about what would happen, and again, being a member of the parish. Some wishes, not all wishes come true, I guess. Some of our involvements, for an example, and I would ask everybody here to think and to have a vision of what can be created sometimes. one of our projects, as many of some of you know here, we started with an old building in the Shelter Rock area, Leemack Avenue, Shelter Rock, Triangle Street. I believe we're up to 9 or 10 buildings now. Every one of them was pretty much condemned. We collected some tax money for the city. We asked nothing from the city, as was mentioned regarding this project. And we pay some nice taxes now, and I think everybody's happy. Another item that took vision, and I think it's important for all of you to have an idea, most of you are aware, about 15 years ago, we had another vision. And that vision was the present medical building on 70 Main Street. There was the Danbury Chevrolet building that eventually the roof caved in, and some of you may remember, some of you certainly are aware. The vision that I had was really, it turned out to be more than I could expect. The first guy that was involved was the man across the table from me here, which was Mayor Jean, and he listened to the idea, and the project started under his hand, and it got finished under the present mayor's hand, which satisfies me, because I believe when we leave politics aside and the egos aside and all these other things, results of what happened. From the medical building came the senior citizen center. The senior center was what used to be our property, and through communication, through the proper cooperation of everybody and understanding and a vision, I won't get into how it got put together, but we know that the senior citizens are much happy. They have what I call their country club. And I believe it's a credit to this guy and the rest of you that made it happen, whoever was involved. And as we sit today on the medical building, a 5,000 square foot addition is being added to. Some more nice taxes for the city. I believe the present building pays 40 to 50 grand a year for taxes. The new addition is going to generate some more taxes, and and I think great things, good things happen. My original wish, and if I get carried away, you can hold me back here. My original wish was for the city to donate the property to the parish. That didn't fly very well.
It was a nice wish.
It didn't even get listened to.
That's going to hold just a second so we can put the...
Sure. So when that didn't fly too well, I mean, I didn't even ask to present it to anybody. So the second wish was to...
Sorry.
We have wishes here too, like state-of-the-art recording.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay. So when the first wish wasn't even listened to, then the second wish was, quite frankly, for our diocese to get interested in purchasing the property. Mike McLaughlin, which is another trustee, and all of you know, Mike and I worked extensively. We got to a point that we needed more help, and who better than Mayor Jean here to get on board? And the parish asked the mayor, Mayor Jean, to participate, and we really explored the possibility. And we got as far as the bishop coming to Danbury and considering it. And of course, what I was told that it was great, it was a great idea, and if I wanted to contribute the money, so they didn't fly very well either. So in the meantime, of course, Mayor Jean here being involved with the Union Savings Bank. And they had some conversations, I guess, and some thoughts. So you go to this great thing, and who better? And I have to say, I think enough has been said about Union Savings Bank. I will say this with all due respect to Jay, with all due respect to John Klein and their history, and the people before them. John Klein will go just like the rest of us. Jay will go just like the rest of us. But the Union Savings Bank will be around forever, as it has for the last. And I think this is something that appealed to me greatly. The other piece of the puzzle here. One day I got talking with Jim Maloney. We had lunch, and I took him around the city to show him what we had done on the south end of town and the Shelter Rock area with some of the buildings I explained. When we parted, he said, "I'm going to return the favor, and I'm going to pick you up one day, and I'm going to take you around and show you what I'm doing." And that's it. And he took me around the city, and I was just amazed on what is going on and what this guy is involved with. And with all due respect, as he took me to the 57 North Street, for which I'm very familiar with the building, again, some things you can't plan. But St. Peter is there, and he helped along. So when Jim was explaining to me about already they were busting out of their seams. With all due respect to Jim, I saw more than probably he did at that time. But this guy isn't going to stay here too long. So we got chatting about what we are talking here tonight, and it so happened that Jim and Jean got talking, and however the rest of it came together. What do we have here to sum up my comments? At this time, we have a boarded up building, with all due respect. That I think we have somebody that is interested, that has the means, that has the resources to do it. I will say this, and I respect Jay's comments regarding the commissioner. I am also familiar with them as well. A few years ago, Jay, all I can say to you though, and I wrote down when you were talking negative, I said can do. That's my, that's my thing. Can do. Get it done. You guys will get it done, and I believe that they can get it done. And as long that I love the idea of Union buying the whole parcel, the complex, one buyer, and I think their history shows that they will not allow, let alone us, but they will not allow the neighborhood to deteriorate. And the other vision that I personally have, that eventually I believe that St. Peter Parish will benefit from this without going into all the details. I think they can benefit from it. I believe that the Y next door, that we all know, has had its issues. Mm-hmm. I believe that this will be a great addition and a great asset. And I personally see the whole block, and that's the only reason I mentioned the Shelter Rock area. I really believe that this whole block is going to be completed. From where the Y is, there's a couple more small residents right in that street there that actually somebody inherited or whatever, and we know the people. But good things can happen in that whole block. So I would hope again that it seems to me that you all have the same vision, and you take all of these things under consideration with great people.
Thank you. Mr. Rizzo, if I could ask, we all appreciate the work and the vision you've had throughout the community, and thank you for that. As far as the rest of the trustees at St. Peter's Church, for the record, I can assume that everybody's just as ecstatic about this program as I think everybody in this room is.
Well, the good and the bad of this.
Okay.
There's two trustees, Michael McLaughlin and myself.
Okay.
And we're both happy about it.
I figured it was a complete
And there's
board.
some-
If I knew it was just the two of you, I wouldn't even ask that
And I see some members of the parish here, and they're happy about
Father Mecca, I can state for you on the
Yes.
record, I spoke with yesterday, he's on vacation, otherwise he would be here as the pastor of St. Peter's Church, and he is supportive of this.
Okay, very good. Phil?
I have a question for Dennis. Dennis, do you have any problems with zoning, what's been thrown here?
Well, we're going to have to do our due diligence and make sure that everything is in order. I have a couple of questions. I don't see, nothing jumps out at me right now based on what we've seen. No showstoppers. This parking, just a question, Gene. Is that for the health center? Is parking that's over across the street? The blue parking?
For employees.
For employees for this?
Yes.
Not for...
Correct. The
Not
housing,
for residents, they'll be on site?
The housing as proposed is parking at grade
On site.
under the building on site.
Okay. And all the...
And right now it depicts 7, again, this is the concept, but the parking is at grade on site under the building, 3 stories above the parking, with 7 units per floor at a minimum. So we're at a minimum of 21 units.
Right. Okay, and of course the bank parking is sufficient.
Is sufficient on site.
Okay. Now there's, Nolan owns a,
Correct.
what's the deal there? Is he on board for some kind of an arrangement?
Yes.
Okay.
He will be.
Well, you will be.
Well, there's an easement. There's a legal
There's an
easement.
easement. There's a legal easement there that allows Palace View, as you know, to cross out to Mountain Street.
Right.
When we develop Palace View. And likewise, we would be able to work through that. And there may be interest in obviously, community involvement in the housing component.
This parking across the street, this would be shared parking.
It's shared from the standpoint that, for the beauty of this, as Jim is
This is
elaborating,
usually vacant during the week.
vacant during the week and available Saturday afternoon and Sunday
Right,
when no
these
one
guys
else is
are
operating.
closed.
Right.
Okay.
For Dennis' information as well, if you're familiar with what used to be a bar, it's still a bar, it's part of the parish owns that little building
Yes.
down on Center Street. That's part of the wish and the vision to eventually do away with that.
I understand.
That alone will cover a lot of parking spaces that are not being used today.
Yeah, I'm working on a revitalization plan for downtown Danbury.
Good. I'm happy to hear.
And I forget the name of the guy who's the chairman of the committee, but John Klein. And we've identified 10 sites downtown. Now, our area is not to be confused with the Central Business District, zoning district, which goes all the way down to South Street. Areas that are part of the downtown, as far as I'm concerned. But we have 10 sites that we've identified for either infill development, meaning they're vacant sites, or private redevelopment, of which this is one on my list. Okay. I think the city would be crazy not to jump on this and do whatever they can to see it through, to overcome obstacles as quickly as possible, and not to be blasé, because projects like this don't come along very often. I am particularly thrilled to see that we found that you found an architect who understands contextual design. I wish we had more who came in with private proposals.
I think that's a good training from a director of planning.
Well, I was glad to hear you mention that it was important for buildings to be close to the street in the downtown. So 12 years of work paid off. Some things got through. But it's now, I presume the facade is brick. This is because this is going to fit in with the whole St. Peter development, the school, and so on as well. one of the things that we emphasize, I won't say I'm finished with it, but we're almost there, is a section on this plan on economic development, which is really the linchpin of the whole study. I mean, we're also looking at public improvements and historic preservation and some other things, but you want to find projects that will jumpstart development in a town area. This is that kind of project. Now, if I can get Joe DeSilva and some other people and Dan Burkin to jumpstart some other projects, we'll be on our way. But this is the kind of thing that really can have an impact that goes beyond its immediate area. And so it has, I know we talked about the impact in terms of taxes and in terms of employees going out and they have disposable income for lunch and this and that, all of which is true. But it also encourages additional development. And that's really the key.
Peter?
Thank you. I think what we're looking at is, what I focus on here is that Gene, Tony, Jay, everybody has said is vision. It's a vision, for the future of our city. And I think that's the key element. And when we, as I said before, we have partners like that, you can make that vision. Your vision is fine, but you have to make that vision happen. I think that's what we have to do.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to Mr. Rizzo, or maybe even Les Pinter, there was some talk earlier during the presentation, I think it came from the bank, that they were looking for some sort of first right of refusal if the bank at some point decided to abandon the facility, that the church would wind up acquiring that. Was that going to be a private agreement between the two parties, the bank and the church, or were you looking for a deed restriction from the city before the property is transferred?
No, we were working cooperatively and have been with the parish, and we're willing to give them the right of first refusal in the event. It's nothing that we can foresee, for generations, but in the event that the bank wasn't going to continue ownership or occupancy of that site, that the church would have the right of first refusal to acquire that site.
Okay, so that's just between you guys and the city.
And an agreement that we would go ahead.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you're looking at a 25 to 50 year horizon here. You're worried about the future, not just the immediate future of protecting that whole block. That's correct.
I believe, Paul, with Union Savings Bank involved, if the parish was ready to take over the property, I know that they would cooperate. For what reason? Why would they do it? If they can benefit with them being there, they would be the tenant. Could be any of these things. I don't believe that any of that will happen. I believe that Union Savings Bank is going to have a landmark there for generations and generations to come. Something that will be there, I guess we could say forever, but certainly beyond many generations.
Well, they've got a building in town that's been there for over 100 years. So.
Yeah. Pretty good start.
Yeah. If I may, Mr. Chairman, I just want to make one comment that isn't really apropos to anything, but some smart people in this room might be thinking, what are you doing with two branches on Main Street? Now, we've done this analysis over and over again.
No waiting.
Huh?
No waiting.
No waiting is one reason, but also sort of different markets, believe it or not. When I first went to Napa Valley, there would be two wineries right next to each other, one really crummy wine and one really good wine, and they started talking to me about microclimates. Well, that's kind of what we have in downtown Danbury. We have a different client base in those two branches, and I'm astounded by it, and I continue to marvel about it. But our South Main branch, which is the subject in question tonight, is our second most profitable location. And so we are more than interested in reinvesting and putting in a branch where we can get better throughput, because that's an awkward site. And so in case anyone in this room walks out and says, I think Union Savings has lost their minds here, we haven't. We actually know what we're doing, and that microclimate, if I can use that term, is different than the Main Street one. Different customer base, different way they want to do banking, and so we're making this investment because we see this as a long-term necessity in downtown Danbury. So in case there was somebody in this room that was thinking, because when I first got to the bank, I have to tell you, my first goal was to close that branch. And until I started to see what was going on. And then I said, wow, this is amazing. So thank you for indulging me.
Thank you. Question for, I don't know if I should direct it at you, Gene, or Mr. Maloney. In an ideal climate, with the bank commission agreeing to go along with this and everybody's happy, what are we looking at for a time frame on these projects?
Put the shoulder on the ground.
I'll talk about phase one.
Phase one's the easy one. I think the public's going to be more concerned about phase two and especially phase three.
As quickly as we can get internal reviews within the city of Danbury, we'll be ready to start. I mean, literally, construction drawings of the signature branch could be ready within 60 days, put up and ready for review internally, seriously, within the departments here at City Hall. And once we obtain the permit, we will be able to begin. Of course, now we're entering into, given the sequencing of things, we're entering into the winter months, so which isn't the peak season for construction, but assuming, again, and I'll take the giant leap and assume that prospectively the council will to approve this plan and all the other conditions as have been previously mentioned occur or could be met. The likelihood of a closing could occur in the fall, and certainly we'd be ready, within months, literally a couple of months. I'd say 2 to 3 months, so within that period of time from closing to be able to start phase one, whether it's practical to do so or just wait till the spring construction season in 2011, but nonetheless we'd be ready to go. I can say to you that if we were to acquire, we would move swiftly, because I think the mayor had indicated that he would like to see those buildings raised, and we can do that and properly maintain those properties so that the blighted condition doesn't permeate and create an unsafe or unhealthy condition in the neighborhood.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I need to go, and I'm very sorry. It's for medical purposes, otherwise I could stay here all night. Do you have any additional questions?
No, I've been to meetings where you've talked all night, so
This course has to go to the Planning Commission as an 824 referral. We will be doing that, and we will, of course, speak with him and make a positive recommendation.
Thanks, Dennis.
Mr. Rizzo, did you have something else you want to add?
Yeah, just, and certainly Jay and can correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. Haven't been involved with their planning. What I see here that by this time next year, certainly they would have a grand opening of the bank, and I don't believe, and again, it's not for me to say, and I don't believe that the grand opening of the bank would be with the boarded up building being across the street. So certainly that block will already by this time look much better than it's looking now, and of course the rest is certainly up to whatever other things that they have to go through.
I just want to add one thing to Gene's sense of urgency for us to move on this project, just to give this ad hoc council some comfort that we would do this immediately. We wanted to renovate that South Main branch over 2 years ago, and I have held off on it after the letter went to the mayor, and then the library saying, oh no, don't do that. So we're beyond anxious to either give that back to the library and get in our new facility as soon as possible, because we have that first floor of that building is hurting. So we want to move as soon as possible.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a council now, that's to expedite, just clear in my mind, and perhaps give other members and people of interest a timeline. If this ad hoc gave a positive recommendation to this proposal, which obviously not would be possible. That would be on our agenda for the August meeting, and then we would have to schedule a public hearing. What's required notice for a public hearing?
Let me, if I could, run with that, because that's the next question I was going to ask Les.
Okay. I'm just looking for a timeline for my information, for the public's information, and obviously for everybody involved information.
First question I would have, in what are we calling this project? Because when we make our motion, we're going to need a name for the project. Do we want to call it Main Street Redevelopment Project? In this,
So yeah, that's what we refer to it as. It's Bank Health Center and Housing.
In the opening remarks, the mayor referred to it as the PD parcel project.
Okay.
Police Department partial product.
And the other thing, Les, is that I know that we had talked earlier about the direction this could have went with as far as the motions go. We'll entertain that. Hey, we're going to want to cross it. Okay, I'm not going to mention these notes. And the mayor talked about his hybrid approach. I'd like to include, if we only make the motion, let's just talk about this, if we only make the motion to move ahead with the direct sale after negotiation of this piece, we leave off the go out to bid process. If the direct sale doesn't go through, it has to go back out to bid anyways. It has to be reformed. So I don't need to make that, we don't need to make that a part of our motion.
Right, it'll default back to the solicitation process.
Okay.
Which the council can certainly positively say, as council wants to, it'll default then. Or the council could certainly reserve take no action.
Correct. That's the council's decision. All right. Why don't you? Does anybody else have any questions before?
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to Les, Corporation Counsel Pinter. This is going to come up at the council meeting. I've already been asked this by members of the council, and so I'll just bring it up here before we go down that road. Do we have to declare this surplus in order for this project to proceed, or can we do this without declaring the property surplus?
You have to declare it surplus.
Okay, so if it's not declared surplus, we're dead in the water.
Well, dead in the water, I'd use a term that you couldn't proceed to dispose of these properties without a declaration of it being, it or them being surplus.
We couldn't enter into some sort of partnership or do something like that?
You could enter into a partnership, but you couldn't dispose of the properties. You couldn't sell them.
Because the question was, can we retain some control to, and I'm not going to bring up any past projects, but in order to avoid certain issues that have happened in the past in Danbury, is there a way to maintain control going forward over this project if we declare it surplus? I mean, if we walk away from this, we've walked away, and these guys, and with all due respect to the petitioners, can essentially do what they want with the property, and our constituents are,
There's two steps here, Paul. Councilman Rotella. One is that if the council looks at these properties and wants to dispose of them, you declare them surplus. That's first. Secondly is how you dispose of them. And that how is what the committee's recommendation, ultimately the council will be, is that you either put them out to the market, do solicitation to the purchasing department, or you do a direct sale to a candidate. So those are your choices as the second step. Number one is surplus. If you want to retain some control over it, then it's a hybrid. Right. We'd have to look at what that control retainage would be.
So my point is, if we do declare it surplus, we walk away.
You don't walk away until you sell it. So once the council votes on it, that's when you walk away.
That's my point. Once we have sold it, it's done. Like disposing any other piece.
Unless you retain some restrictions or some other. I can't conceive of some at the moment, but you could retain some rights in the deed, but that has not come up with it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so our first step is to declare it surplus property, so these gentlemen could move ahead with whatever they're thinking of wanting to do.
Not tonight.
Correct.
That's the council.
Our responsibility, we're charged tonight with either moving it to the council and recommending that we're recommending to the council that it be declared surplus properties. That's what we're doing tonight. Is that correct?
That's the vote.
That's the vote. Then that puts them in the position to be able to buy that property, for us to sell that property to them, or can at that point another bidder then, since now it is surplus property, come in and bid on that property.
Well, the first part, assuming the council committed tonight makes a recommendation, against a recommendation to declare it surplus, that says to the council, we recommend that you sell or dispose of these properties.
Okay.
The second part of the recommendation would be one of two things. Solicit buyers on the market through the ordinance procedure, which is the first option that the ordinance provides for, or the second option is, the recommendation is that the council approve the sale of the property to a proposed candidate. And that's when the buyer would proceed with some knowledge after the planning commission reported.
So at that point, we still have control as to how that's going to go.
You still have control at that point.
Very good.
Once the council votes on what it does,
Understand.
then you have to look at the...
Thanks, Les. Appreciate it.
Normally, I don't open up to the general public, but Mrs. Mitchell's been...
She's not general.
We're gonna...
The only concern I have with this is that it looks like the plan is to make it all a semi-permeable area. It's either going to be paving or buildings. And we have a flooding problem down there. It backed up Sunday, it backed up a week ago, it backs up numerous times a year. If it backs up far enough, it still runs off of the state highway, city street, down into people's private properties downhill. I've objected in the past to proposals, not because I didn't think they were great. Believe me, I think this is great, and if this will allow me to give away or sell my land because we have a ripple effect, I will be going, because I am too old to be here being a witch and saying, I'm still flooding, my neighbors are still flooding. I realize it's very expensive to fix this, but we've done fix after fix after fix. Everything looks so much better. It's so much more wonderful for the general public. It's tremendous progress. But for the few people that live along the East Ditch and still have to get the pumps out and everything, it is not pleasant. Had we been able to sue or have a class action or do something, maybe we could have gotten some justice. But this has gone on since the swamp was filled in to build Danbury Commons. That was a wonderful thing too. That is wonderful to have all that housing for seniors. All these things are wonderful. But some of the existing people who have been here for years have been very badly affected by all of this. And so I would like to hear the water plan, and that I won't get to hear about that until we're way down the road, and then everyone's going to want me to be quiet. So I just thank you for allowing me to bring it up front, that it still exists. It's still very painful for the people that endure it. Thank you for letting me speak.
Ready for a motion?
I'll propose a motion. I recommend that the property, the PD parcel project, be declared surplus property and disposed of by direct sale after negotiations with the Union Savings Bank.
I forgot to, if I could, through you, Don had a question about the public hearing. You need about 15 days with 2 separate publications of notice for the hearing.
15 days apart or 7 days apart?
15 days total.
Okay, 15 days.
2 separate publications in advance notice for the public hearing. That would occur rapidly.
So we would have to, so the council, through the chairman, we would have to make, the council would have to declare the property surplus. Then we could schedule a public hearing 7 days after the council voted on that, and then republish 7 days, and then hold the public hearing, and then it would have to go back to the council after that?
Yes.
Yes.
You could have basically.
So
If I could, basically
Committee of the
what
whole?
we're going to do, we don't necessarily have to do a committee of the whole. It's not called for. Maybe you want to add to your motion?
All right, such transaction being subject to public hearing, a report from the planning commission, and at a sales value as determined by the city council or by the city board of awards if sold publicly as designated by ordinance section 2-133.
There's the motion. Can I have a second and we'll discuss it? Second. Okay, thank you. What that means basically is that we will have a public hearing. I think the time frame will be that our ad hoc report will go on the August meeting. We'll see I can't speak for the council president, but I would assume he'll arrange a public hearing at some point during the month of August, at which point at the September meeting, we'll be able to vote yea or nay as to whether we want to accept the recommendation of the ad hoc committee.
So theoretically,
September 1st or 5th, whatever.
they're looking at September 1st for amendment for the city council.
For us to have.
So that gives you an idea of where we're at. Okay, good. That was just to give me an idea, to give my constituents an idea, and to give them an idea of where we're at. Good, thank you.
Motion's good.
Jack, back to the motion for a second.
Yes.
David Singler, I think, made a good point, and I'll bring it back to what the mayor said about the fallback proposal for going out to the market. There is a reason that may be a good idea to put something in the motion about that.
Well, that's what I was asking for in the motion. That's what.
No, that's right. That's right. And
That's what I'm trying to clarify is, do we want to put that in there, or do we want to just know that that's the default position? Obviously, if it falls through, we got to do something.
It is a default position, but if you put it in the motion now, you don't have to come back and reconsider that from the committee. So it may be good for you to put it in if you want to save some time. But the only reason, again, I was hesitant on it is because you could choose not to do anything if you reject this concept. Okay, you don't have to go out to the market. That's all. You could just take no action and revisit it in a year and then put it out to the market. So you don't have to default to that. But if you put it in there, if you actively put it in there, then you will have made a decision. Okay. So I'd recommend you do put that in. It doesn't hurt you.
Okay, so we're going to amend your motion if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Let me just see what you wrote, and I'll amend it for you.
Mr. Chairman, do you not need excuse me, thank you. You're going to amend the original motion. Do you not need a vote to do that?
Yeah, I'm going to ask for the motion to amend. I'm just trying to figure out what the amendment's going to be. Okay, so everybody recommend.
That's going to require a 2/3 of the public hearing, right?
For disposal of public property?
What you going to do?
For sale or lease of public property, yes. Jack, if I can
Unless
suggest-
you're going to have to suggest some here, because
Put that on the end, right?
All you do to act to be, or in the event, or in any other event, to subsection A.
okay.
Okay? Or in any other event,
You
to
got that.
subsection A.
So we have a motion in a second. We have
Other event to what?
Subsection A,
Or any other event?
which is this
Refer
one you
to.
crossed out. In any other event, to subsection A. Revert to subsection A.
So you'd like to make a motion to amend and add?
Yeah, I'd just like to add to the motion that all that I said, or in any other event, refer to section A, which is in accordance with Code of Ordinance of Section 2-133, requiring publication and public offering by the public purchasing agent.
Okay. So you'll give me a second on that, Peter?
I'm just processing all the words. Just give me 1 second.
There it is. CA, that's the amendment.
Just give me 1 second. I think I got it.
So you're not...
You're out of order.
Sorry, sir. It's the last story in my life.
Bottom line is B is first and then A. So we're going with the...
Second,
Okay, so you'll second the amendment?
I'll second the amendment.
Okay, so motion's made a second on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now to vote the main motion, which contains the amendment. All those in favor of the main motion?
Aye.
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 Opposed? So we're unanimous on that. Okay. Before we adjourn, do you have a question under other matters here?
So we're declaring the property surplus,
Correct.
and we're publishing a public notice that any willing and able buyer can bid on that property.
No, sir.
No.
No, sir. This is a private sale, or a direct sale after the negotiation to the bank, and what was presented tonight. That's the sale. If that sale falls through,
Then the default position
is it goes out to public.
But we have a willing and able buyer, and they're first in line.
Correct.
And we're committing to them. When we made this motion, if the council approves it, we're committing to them.
Correct.
Good. So nobody can come in and undercut them or try to jump in.
No, sir.
Good. Okay, that was my concern, is that somebody else is trying to sneak in underneath.
Okay.
Good. No, I want them to do it.
I'd like to thank everybody that came tonight. Loved your presentation. What a great project for the city of Danbury. Thanks to all our distinguished speakers, and thanks to the council members and everybody else who was here this evening. With that being said,
All of you.
is that-
Thanks, Tony, to adjourn.
I am. I'd like to make a motion. Take a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second. All those in favor?
All right.